IP address restrictions. So you can list certain IP addresses, and then users logging from those IP ranges will not have to activate their computers. So what basically happens is when a user logs in into Salesforce, you would have seen it that when you log in into Salesforce, you generally get a key on your email address, or if you have updated your phone number on as a text message on your phone, and then you need to provide that key and to log in into it's like a two-factor authentication. So you provide that one-time key, and then you are able to log into Salesforce. But if a user is logging in from a trusted IP range, then this level of secondary authentication is not required, and they can just log in straight away by giving their username and password into your Salesforce instance. So be very sure of when you are adding your trusted IP ranges to your Salesforce instance. Also, once a computer or once a device is activated, then the user does not require to enter this one-time password. They can just provide their username and password, and they are able to log into Salesforce. So generally, network access is done in order to allow users clicking from a particular office so that they fall within a trusted IP range and they are able to log in. You can also, using other settings, you can limit the user to log in from any other IP range as well, and they can only log in from certain IP ranges. But again, this is totally business specific requirement. Be very cautious while doing this, because this may cause some of your users not able to access Salesforce. So how do we add the trusted IP range? You basically go to network access in your setup home, and then you click new and enter start IP range. So in our case, like 192.198.1.1, and we want to give it to 192.198.1 to 99, right? And you can add a description. It's a best practice to add description always, and click save. So you have added a IP range, and that's how you can add multiple IP ranges. So let's talk about session settings. So what exactly a session is? So a session refers to whenever a user logs in to Salesforce, that moment he is logged in until the time he is working and he doesn't log out, that particular time or that particular duration is called a session. So here in these settings, you can set up how long a particular session can last, and after inactivity, and which particular IP address they can log in from and all that. So let's see what all settings are available as an administrator for you when you look at session settings. So first is session timeout. So you can time out a session after 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever value your business agrees to. Then you can also disable pop-up which comes when the session gets logged out. You can do that. You can force log out on session timeout. So even if when the pop-up comes in and the user is trying to stop the logout, but once you have checked this setting, this comes checked by default. So once you have checked the setting, this will force the user to log out and log back in again. So basically create a new session. There are a couple of more settings using which you can lock the IP address from which the session originated. So basically, if somebody is trying to change the IP address and log in using the same session, so sometimes it happens that I was originally logged in from my hotspot on my mobile, and then I've switched to my Wi-Fi. So in that scenario, if you would activate this setting, then me as a user would have to re-log in, because my IP now has changed, because earlier I was on my hotspot and now I'm on my home Wi-Fi. This is totally depends on how secure your organization wants to go in. Lock sessions to the domain which they were first used. So basically, the domain is you set up the domain you log in for, and then the session would be logged in for that session. force relogin after login as a user. So basically there is an option in Salesforce which enables you as an admin to log in from another user to see what all access he has and if he's able to see what permissions you have granted him to see, right? So in that case, this particular setting would force you to re-login again once you have logged in as a particular user. And similarly, there are a couple of more settings which you would come across, which initially as an admin are not very useful for you, but you can just scroll through these settings and see them. Some of these, like especially clickjack ones and cross-site request forgery, these are more of from integration point of view, but just have a look at these settings when you come over here. And then another thing as part of session settings is session management. So what you do is in session management, it shows you the current sessions of all the users who are logged into your system right now, and they all can, where they are logged in from, what is their session ID, what is the parent session ID, and what the user type and application is, then until when the session is valid. So the session started at 12:22 and it is valid till, so basically like we saw there, so 2 hours the session is valid for, and what is the source IP range and the location. So all these things you can see here, and what you can also do is you can remove a particular user from the active session. So let's say you identified somebody has logged in from incorrect address, IP address, or you think that that person's user was hacked or password was hacked. So in that case you can just remove that particular session and then freeze the user. So you can do that as well, like I'll show you. So if we remove this, what happens, right? So in this case you've seen the session was removed, and then basically the parent session was still there, so I could still stay here. But if I remove all of these sessions, let's see what happens. See, so now I've been logged out of this Salesforce, and I can re-log in again Salesforce, right? And you can see all these sessions have come back again, and the time has updated, and so is the valid until time has updated as well. If you have any questions, you can join the QA session, which happens every Friday 3 to 4 p.m. GMT, which is 7:30 to 8:30 IST. And please drop in your comments, feedback, and any questions in the comment section, and I'll get back to you.